Hey, welcome, peeps. We've got a really exciting guest today. We're going to talk about near death experiences, consciousness, mystical encounters, dreams, even a bit of AI. So stick around, all right? Hey, good people. I'm Derek London. Thanks for checking out my channel. Around here, we talk about everything law of attraction. We discuss a lot about the psychological, scientific, and rational basis for subscribing to this philosophy of mine. And in fact, if your reality could stand some change for the better, you have only to start there, with your mind. Hit that subscribe button and settle in, because your life will never be the same. Hey everyone, thanks so much as always for dropping in. So today I'm thrilled to be joined by Silvia Isachsen. Sylvia is the author of the book Downloads from Heaven. She also runs a fast-growing spirituality channel here on YouTube where she interviews many guests who are subjects of near-death experiences, or NDEs. And we've talked a lot about NDEs on this channel here too. Now that probably represents the bulk of her content so far, although she does have notable authors and speakers on who are authorities in spiritual topics generally. Thank you so much for your time, Sylvia. How does it feel to be the interviewee for a change?
Relaxing. It's so good to be interviewed versus interviewing. I love it, but it feels good to be on the other side.
Well, that's good. That's good. And it's great to have you. So I should just start by being perfectly honest with you. I haven't watched all of your videos, although I try to be as prepared as possible for each guest that comes on. Uh, so far, I've not come across your personal story. You've mentioned that you've had many profound mystical experiences, but you focus a lot on NDEs, as mentioned. Why is that? Have you been a subject of NDEs?
No, but I found that NDEs really help me to understand my personal spiritually transformative experiences. I found that NDEs, listening to people telling their story, was really good for me because it helped validate pretty much what was happening to me. So I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm what I call a dreamer. And I have these dreams and information comes through, and the information and the places that I was going to sound very, very similar to the places and the information that people who were having near death experiences were having. So I was like, I love this. And of course, I got hooked. And then when I wanted to start my channel, I thought, what is my passion? And my passion is discovering the truth, understanding what's on the other side, creativity, God, all those things, spirituality. So I thought, let's do this.
Yeah. Well, and it's a great channel. Have you struggled with these great life questions that, what the hell happens to us after we die? Is that part of has there been any anxiety that has played into this focus on your channel?
No anxiety. I think that everybody wants to know. It's just that some people pay attention to it more than others. And for me, I've been blessed, especially in the past few years, where my life is really lovely and I'm happy right now. And so I had the opportunity to indulge that quest for truth and understanding. So that's why I do it. I don't feel any anxiety around it. I feel passion and joy around it.
Hmm. See, like that's funny you say that, because I personally, I don't know if it's just the way I was brought up or whatever, but I deal with a lot of uh, not so much lately, but just fear of death. And I mean, if the lights really do go out, I mean, there's really nothing to be afraid about that, because no one will be there to be bothered by it. But at the same time, it seems so troubling, and so you never went through any of that, eh? Like it's not to any extreme degree.
Well, I think that I've been blessed by having my dreams, and perhaps you saw the videos on my channel about my dreams or not, but basically in my dreams, my very first dream I had, my grandpa, who had passed away before I was even born, came to speak to me, and it was so clear and it was so impactful that I didn't have a doubt in my mind that after I pass away, that life continues. Now, maybe a little doubt, and that's why I was a truth seeker, but primarily I don't worry about it at all.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
What about seeing dead relatives? I mean, you mentioned your grandfather, right? Have you lost anybody else close to you in your family that
I have.
brought up these questions?
Yeah, I lost my mother, I lost my father, I lost my grandpa, I lost my grandma. Pretty much a lot of loss. And so when you do experience a lot of loss, you experience, you go introspective and you start to wonder like what's going on. But like I said, I've been so blessed to have them come to me in my dreams. And like one dream I had that I'll share with you is that we were sitting at this long table and we were all having dinner, all of my father's side. People sitting at the table were both alive and passed on. So we were having this wonderful dinner and it was great. Those kinds of experiences where you're actually communicating. So there's a difference between a standard dream and what some people call a lucid dream. And I'm not fully satisfied with the term lucid dream. Basically, I know I'm there, they're there, and there's so much love between us. So, yeah.
Hmm. You said that other people were there as well that hadn't deceased. Have you ever had anything corroborative where you explain, "Oh, I had this dream about you," and they're still alive, and they're like, "Yeah, I have had dreams like that too," with Grandpa and everybody at the dinner table. Have you had
Mhm.
anything like that?
Um, I'm not sure I fully understand that, but I did have one experience that was really cool. And it was not too long ago, I want to say 5 years ago, where I didn't know this person and she didn't know me. And we were related through this thing we had to be related through. So we did not talk, and I did not know anything about her past history. And there was a little bit, I'm reluctant to share it all, but there was a little bit of like we didn't know each other and we had to share custody of a child. Let's put it this way.
Mm-hmm.
So there was not a ton of knowledge or love or anything like that between us. And I met her on the other side. I fell asleep and met her, and I absolutely loved her. And we were having such a great conversation. The love between us in this place of the dream was so much. We were great friends. It was very clear to me what our plan was together here on earth and how we were going to help each other and that we knew each other. And when I woke up, I felt so refreshed. I felt happy. I felt a lot of like sort of letting go of preconceived notions of how we felt about each other. And I promptly went to go search for her on Facebook because I didn't even know her phone number. That's how little I knew about her.
Wow.
And when I told her about the dream and the details she told me, which I kind of left out, she told me 4 things very clearly about her life that I never would have known about. And I told her, and she was a little frightened at first. She's like, "Well, who told you this?" Because we shared an ex-partner, and who told? Did he tell you this? Did he call you? Like me and that person never spoke. So it was really kind of neat. And still to this
How
day, I think
odd.
she's kind of like, what's going on? But for me, I feel nothing but love.
Do you think that there's anything psychological or scientific that could bring to bear on why you had this experience?
Well, I think you're looking at me after years of culmination in terms of growth and experiences. So I don't have any doubt whether there was science on it or not, doesn't matter to me because the nature of science is that it's continually learning. Some of the
Mm,
things, even in my lifetime, weren't believed to be true, and now they are true. So, I mean, in this short period of time of history, we went from the world being flat to it being round, and there's being billions of galaxies. So, I don't put a lot of stock in that. I put stock in my internal intuition, internal wisdom, internal love, internal compass. I really go by that, especially now that I've had some time and years have passed to mature, I guess.
yeah. Yeah, we always refer to science kind of arrogantly, hey, like we're always in possession of the ultimate truth, and it's, as you said, our understanding is constantly expanding. So like yeah, I'm totally on board with that. Like I'm all for science, but let's recognize our limitations. That seems to be what scientists have been failing to do for millennia, really, is just recognizing that we don't know everything and we likely never will. So what is it to
Well,
her to have an open mind, right?
right. So like I'm not, I just want to make clear that I'm not saying that science is bad. I think
Oh, I
science
know.
is based on curiosity, but I think that there are limits in terms of like science is like an en masse movement
Hmm.
where there's this person who has this thought and this download, say, and they have a breakthrough. So they spend their time convincing other people through peer-reviewed journals or other types of experiments to quantify what it is. And as of yet, as far as I know, spirituality hasn't been quantified, nor by science or religion for that matter,
Hmm.
fully and completely. And again, I'm not against either one. I think both are really cool.
Yeah, yeah, well said. Now, having interacted with so many subjects of near-death experiences, I believe you've acquired a lot of knowledge and observed many commonalities among these stories. What would you say are some of the most consistent features of NDEs that you've noticed?
I would say the biggest is that they have been, it's like they've been opened wide to the universal knowledge of love. And that is the most common I found with every single person I've ever interviewed is they have a deep love and understanding of humanity, God, and the universe.
Hmm. How would you define God in your own personal opinion?
Oh boy, that's a big one.
Maybe that's too big of a question for this
Yeah, it's
conversation. I
still
don't know.
evolving. It's still evolving. I think it's a good question. And I've thought many different things. And I think that inherently a spiritual journey asks those questions of who God is. Currently, where I stand, I'm getting to know God within me and developing the God within me and having communion with the God within me. And so, yeah, that's where I am right now. I think that he, she, however you want to identify God, is the spark of life that animates my soul and takes me on this journey and allows me to experience things. And yeah,
So not necessarily like a personage per se, not this deity like bearded man in the heavens. Like you don't defer to any of those kind of representations of God.
I don't want to be funny, but it's equivalent to thinking that the Earth is flat, that God is the guy in heaven with a beard.
Hmm.
So I mean, the universe is so massive, and there are so many elements and beings within the universe, many of which we haven't identified, even planets. And if you think about the planet in and of itself, it's a lot bigger than us. It's kind of like an ant saying that, yeah, we rule the universe. So
Yeah,
I
true.
think God is the fabric and the energy, the the actual the what this universe is composed of, along with a spirit. I think what we have in common with God is the spirit.
Would you say God is fundamental reality? Or would you say God is synonymous with consciousness, maybe? Are those, have you thought about that before? Or,
Beyond. God is beyond those things.
oh, even beyond consciousness. Okay.
Well,
That's interesting.
well, consciousness is up for interpretation, and
Yeah.
consciousness is also like when you sleep, for example, are you conscious?
Hmm. Yeah, good
No, you're
question.
not. No, you're not, but you're still alive.
Yeah.
So I think during sleep, during waking, that God exists. So I think that God is always, of course, present and permeates every single thing in every single state of
Hmm.
being.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's funny because like in talking, I've had, for example, Bernardo Kastrup on this channel, who's a philosopher of mind, and even he struggles with this word consciousness. He doesn't like how broad it is. He talks about phenomenal consciousness, which is, being aware, but not aware that you are aware. You know what I mean? And so that's something that humans kind of have uh, uniquely to themselves, this capacity to report on their awareness, whereas we might call an insect conscious, but does it talk about, hey, I was just thinking this a minute ago, let's explore that? No, I
Oh
don't
my
think
gosh,
it's like that, right?
You are going someplace I love. So insects do have consciousness, and if you really want to analyze that, if let's take the ant for example, they have a hierarchy. They have who does what. They build things. They have a job every day. They go to that. They do that. It's just not the same type of activities or consciousness that we do. That's the thing about humans, is we're making a huge assumption that every type of consciousness is our consciousness.
Yeah.
And they're not giving enough room to understand that this universe is really a lot bigger than you think. And there's different levels of consciousness, including the planet, for example. Yeah, we're going to go there. We're going to go from the ant to the
Yeah.
planet. There's a level of consciousness within all beings. It's just different. And that something, see, right now, as a collective, we are trying to grapple with one another and trying to understand our own consciousness. So we're kind of not even looking at any other kind of consciousness. We take for granted that ours is the only consciousness. But I believe science, religion, spirituality will move in a direction to encompass true unity with all levels of consciousness, not just ours.
Do you think that, and I know I'm asking for a lot of speculations here. This is just fun, by the way.
I'm having
But,
fun.
you know, like Rupert Sheldrake, for example, has kind of speculated on whether the sun has some kind of consciousness, thoughts maybe superior to ours, because the magnetic electrical activity vastly surpasses that of the human brain. You think that's possible, or have you ever thought about that?
I certainly have thought about that.
Yeah.
I don't know Rupert, but I feel like he's on a good track there. So, you know how we talked about the ant's consciousness, our consciousness, and now you're asking about the sun's consciousness.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I think that stars are just bigger, more magnificent, and different beings of existence because they exist and they do have energy. And, if we compare the level of energy and the output, I suppose you could say superior, but I don't think anything is inferior or superior. It's just what we're comparing with where we're standing at the moment.
Yeah, just different kinds. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were talking about commonalities of NDEs, but what would you say are some of the most inconsistent or individual features of NDEs just in your interviews that you've had with people? In other words, like where do they seem to conflict with one another, if at all?
Well, I think they all have that in common. So one thing I noticed recently, without any specific NDE, is that I think that their near-death experience is influenced somewhat to what their belief systems are. So if there's any variety in terms of what they experience, in part, it's what they believe to begin with before they even had the near-death experience. So how they perceive things on the other side. Let's say what's happening on the other side is the same for everyone, but each person has their different mindscape and belief system. Therefore, that's the only difference, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would say the bulk of the NDEs that I've heard, it's the heaven experience that most people have, the big light and the feeling of love and oneness with everything. However, you do here and there hear of NDEs where it includes an experience of hell. What do you make of that? Are there any thoughts you have?
I just interviewed a guy yesterday on my channel, Leo Murphy, and he experienced hell. And yeah, just before I answer
Really?
that question, yeah, I want you to know something that I was surprised by. Everybody whom I've interviewed has done it voluntarily, meaning for free, and they want to help the world. These are really good, brave, kind people who are really going out on a limb by telling you this because they are continually being examined and judged to see whether they're telling the truth or not.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have to be very brave and convicted to want to help the world by sharing this information. So if they have something in common, it's also that they are committed to sharing the truth that they've experienced, which I think is completely beautiful and commendable, and I honor them for that. So
Yeah.
what was your question again?
Oh no, I think you answered that. Is that I think your point was that these people don't claim to have absolute knowledge of whether their hell experience or heaven experience was the ultimate life after death reality. You said that they were just being honest and sharing their experience, and I love that because you know I hope on my channel I've gotten across the point that curiosity is everything. Like, let's just be curious. There's obviously space for uh piercing and very searching questions. And I certainly don't want anybody to feel like they're being what's the word, interrogated, because it is a beautiful experience, and it's a part of the human um dimension, that we have. So it's good. So I
Well,
think
I
you
have a
answered
question.
that. Yeah.
I've got a question or a thought process back to that about heaven and hell. So if you were to interview people, like let's say there was somebody living in a very sort of ritzy part of the earth where they're
Mhm.
experiencing a very fluid, affluent life and very little resistance, a lot of, say, desires met, and they're happy.
Mhm.
And you interviewed that person, and then you went to a different location where the person is having a lot of challenges emotionally, financially, in every way. And you interviewed those two people on the same planet, on the same earth, at the same time.
Mm.
You're going to see two very different responses in the same place at the same time,
Yeah.
the same level of consciousness, the same era. So I think that's something really to reflect on what heaven and hell is. And I'm not, I want to make sure that people understand, I'm not saying you make up your own heaven and hell, but I'm going to ask you to think about that
Yeah.
wherever you are.
Yeah, that's true. That is something to think about. Now, I feel I should level with you about something. Well, we've already touched on this. I personally have had to really fight my biases
Mhm.
when it comes to the concept of life after death. And I don't think I'll ever get over my bias, as much as I try to challenge it. I
Okay.
wasn't raised as an atheist, but I do have a commonality with them in that I always believe that when you're dead, and lights out. And there's serious problems with that worldview, and I've discussed it on my channel. But nevertheless, it still seems to be the default when I approach these topics. Have you ever kind of dealt with that sort of bias, or was there a time you felt that consciousness simply ended abruptly at the point of death? Or had you always has this been a lifelong belief for you?
Well, I think that we need to be delicate and give room to all states and levels and phases of consciousness.
Hmm.
And to somebody who believes that, it's very true and tangible. Like that is their reality. It's like you asked me the previous question. People say they've seen heaven and hell. Well, does afterlife exist or not? And does it really matter to have to know that answer? I think underlying we all, if every other human feels like I do, I think we all kind of wonder, but it can stop you from living if you're worried about dying all the time. And I don't
How
like
true.
to focus on death. I mean, I want to live my life. That's why I'm here. So if I interview somebody with a near death experience, what I'm trying to do is open up the arena of thought process. I'm not trying to focus an emergency where, oh my gosh, there is life after death. Whether you believe it
Yeah.
or not, it doesn't bother me. I mean, I want you to be happy where you are, you or anybody else who I'm communicating with. And I don't feel the need to try to change their perspective or their mind.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to be.
They're going to
Yeah.
find out anyways.
Pardon me?
They're going to find out anyways.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, who of us has the ultimate answer here? And I worry about having some preconceived notion and then finding out I'm wrong. You know what I mean? So, but it's good to be wrong every now and then. I think what you do is so valuable on your channel because it's just asked with a nice kind of open, safe space for people just to express, what their experience was, and leave it up to everybody else, what they make of it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's great. What would you, having interviewed lots of people like this, what would you suggest for my audience and those abroad who interact with people with NDEs? How would you advise them to interact with them, I guess is what I'm asking.
First of all, they should come watch my channel.
Yeah. First and foremost, right?
Yeah, well, little plug in there for me. I think that people should, not just with NDErs, but with everybody, give grace and allow for room, and to try to refrain from imposing your will and belief system on everybody. The best way to change anybody or anything is to start with yourself.
Yeah.
So if you're walking around joyful and happy and feeling good about your belief system, people want to know about it. They're curious about it. And if you're having a high vibe, people want to feel the high vibe or step away from the high vibe. So I think, be the change. So when you ask me how should those people treat those other people, I think they should treat them with respect and an open ear and heart. I don't think anybody should believe or disbelieve anything. I think they should be moved by what internally is being said to them. I think people should go by their inside connection versus trying to find their answers outside. And that's very curious, because a lot of people will go to somebody like a medium or an NDE to look for answers. Now, I get it 110%. And these people do have some wisdom to share to stimulate it, but really they're just sparking the person's inner evolution towards that. It's all happening within you.
Yeah. I don't want to say who is your favorite guest, but you know what I mean, your favorite story that you came across.
I think each one of them, honestly, I'm not trying to be protect all the people. I really think that each story I walked away with a new experience. And once you fine tune your antenna, you're going to realize that each one of these stories is sharing a different gem for you. So each story isn't the same, and each story is being told by a different person. So first of all, just in life in general, we resonate with people who are like us. So we've got a variety of people who are different. So every person who has an NDE is different, and different people are going to resonate with them. A. B. Each one of them is coming at a different level of consciousness and interpretation of their NDE. So they are meeting people where they're at, and it's designed that way. These people who have an NDE, it didn't happen by accident.
Yeah.
They're back there so that they can raise the consciousness, because imagine if nobody ever had an NDE, we would be really steeped in amazing darkness. So amazing darkness with respect to what's possible for us after life.
What do you think is our purpose in coming to Earth? Do you think there's a pronounced purpose there?
Yes. So I think that we all wish that it's an altruistic purpose, so that we came down here to help others with our amazing talents and gifts, which I think is wonderful. I think, and it's true too. However, I think more so we're here to work out things about our spirit, and this environment and placement is perfect to learn and grow in.
Do you think an eternal heaven type situation awaits us all, or do you think we reincarnate, or do you have any ideas on that?
Well, I think that the creation of God, the entire universe and beyond, is a great place. Great to begin with. Do I believe in reincarnation? Absolutely, but maybe not in the same way everybody else thinks so. So some people say, I'm going to come here lifetime after lifetime, and I'm always going to be a human. And when you really look at it from a scientific point of view, the iron that's running in the hemoglobin in your blood comes from a supernova blast. So am I a star?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely stardust, right?
I am.
We have
I'm.
the
I'm a recycling of all of the products of the universe. So
yeah
to define myself as one, every element in my body right now comes from the earth and can be found in our solar system.
yeah yeah that's true. It's profound to think of it that way, isn't it?
So I'll be recycled somehow or another, whether I come back as a human being or what I choose to. What's going to dictate that is my mindset and my mindscape. You will be wherever you are. See, here's the big illusion, I think, is that we think we're alive, we're going to die, we might go to heaven, we might go to hell, we might go to sleep forever, and we might dissolve into the ground. Let's take the atheist perspective. We dissolve into the ground. Even at that point, you're still coming back as grass and as a tree and as fertilizer. Okay. So even if we go from the base foundation, as you move up in the chain of consciousness, you recognize that, first of all, energy can't see. I do have a respect for science. So, what do they say about energy? You tell me.
Well, one of the things they say is that it's never destroyed. It's constantly in a state of transition.
So, is that true or is that not true?
I guess time will tell. It seems to
No,
be
it's true.
consistent up until now, right?
Right. Well, it's true as far as what we know, right? So,
Yeah.
if we are composed of energy and we have energy in us, just like the sun does, where's that energy going?
And back to where it came from in another form.
Right. So I think that if I were to conclude the conversation, I am the universe is me, sounds very lofty, but I am being recycled and regenerating where my energy of consciousness is taking me. So, see, I feel so excited by that concept. Like, it doesn't make me feel lost at all. It makes me feel like, oh, are you kidding me? Like, I am completely part of this entire universe and my energy is never going to die, and that God is every single place and I'm never alone. Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, I often think on that very point, I've mentioned it in my channel that, you know, we have a very narrow idea of what consciousness is. We talked about insects a moment ago, but let's take that right down to the bottom. Let's just take basic periodic elements. Are they dead? Is my thermostat conscious? Like questions like that. It's like, well, when you get right down to the periodic elements, there's still intelligence, or there's still resonance with its environment. It's like, and who's to say that isn't consciousness to some degree, right?
Oh my gosh, your thermostat, that's hilarious. So the level of consciousness that your thermostat has, well, mine's pretty skookum because it's like some kind of high-tech one. So basically the level of consciousness is it will tell me whether it's hot, cold, it will turn on based on how I created things. So we're all created to function in a certain way.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I think that we are all, I mean, we can tell the difference. Oh my gosh, you just sparked something. So artificial intelligence, that's a new and burgeoning field, which I'm so fascinated by. Okay, like a little bit of scaredness and a little bit of fascination. Kind of like my great grandma with a record player, like what the hell is this? So, artificial intelligence is going to prove to be quite interesting because it's a level of consciousness that's outside of the biological computer. So, the way I see ourselves is that we are a biological computer with a program that's coded in our DNA, and we function and act in general. We do have a higher level of consciousness of free will that's given to us, and therefore we move ahead and we do it. Now we're moving into a different arena where it's not material. So reality is going to expand in a lot of different directions, starting as of right, well, it has been anyways, but starting up right now, I think there's going to be exponential growth. And so when you have that level of intelligence, you can't deny certain things. Just like I said, energy is energy and it can't be destroyed. So I don't think people really drill deep enough to that process. If that's true, we're not dying.
Yeah. Do you
We
think,
just won't be this.
I mean, you say you've looked into AI a bit before. Do you think I'm asking you a lot of speculative questions. I hope that's
Sure.
okay.
Go ahead. I love it.
Do you think it's like, from what you've seen in your AI researches, do you think it's possible for consciousness to take a digital form? Like, do you think it'll be possible hypothetically one day to download my everything that is my brain in a computer and live almost an eternity as a computer? Do you think like do you think that's too far-fetched, or do you think?
You are so funny. Considering that my book is called Downloads from Heaven, I do think that, first of all, let's examine the DNA for just a moment. So you have DNA, and I do have a little bit of science background through university. You are programmed to function, and there's predictable things that are going to happen in a person's life, and phases and stages that they go through, questions that they ask themselves. So, yeah. How do you know that? And first of all, define digital. I would love to hear you define digital.
Yeah, good question. Because I mean, is if biology is some kind of a computer, we're just talking about a different kind of digital in that form, right? So I guess I
But
would define. Go ahead.
no, please do.
Oh, I guess I would define digital as not biological necessarily, but basically just running on something analogous to computer hardware with
Let's
software
shift,
running on that. I don't know. What would you
let's
say?
shift from the hardware to the power source, which is
Right.
electrical, and your body is generates electricity and has an electromagnetic field and is connected to that. So our power source is the same, and ones and zeros. And I'm coming at it from a limited knowledge because you're saying, you're asking me a speculative question. So as far as what I've thought, which I do go deep down the rabbit hole, that electrical connection of ones and zeros, that impulse, the heartbeat, even our heart is based on like that electrical impulse. And then the magnetic field that we generate around us. How different are we from that? So we have an intake for video, we have an audio intake, we have a microphone, we have a software that's digitally programmed on us. I mean, I don't want to go too far out there because it might blow people's minds to conceive of those things, but who are we? And are we ahead already of the AI? Like we are regenerating informational, electrical, biological, amazing being.
Yeah, I suppose by that
With
definition, then
memory and RAM. I
yeah,
don't
I
know.
mean by that definition, we are kind of digital already, hey? Yeah. No, it's interesting. Okay, so if it's all right with you, I was hoping I could segue into spirituality more broadly. I could talk forever with you about AI and all this stuff. That was great. But aside from NDEs, what have been some of your deepest spiritual or mystical experiences? Well, you didn't have an NDE, but yeah, just maybe go a little bit more into some of your mystical experiences you've had, if you're
Mm,
okay with sharing that.
sure. No, my dreams, my meditations, and so I have this thing where I believe that praying is taking time to commune with God, and meditation is the time to listen to God and the God that's within you. So prayer and meditation is important to me for that particular reason, because if I honor God and myself, I'm going to take time in my day to commune with that, since it's the source for me. And then I'm going to listen to answers. So when I've listened, I've received some amazing information and spiritually transformative experiences awake. And then in my dreams, which I feel so gifted to be able to be in that state of unconsciousness in the evening where I can just sort of release every day living. And I've had most recently, I went to Sedona, Arizona, and I wanted to experience a vortex. And, to be honest with you, I wasn't feeling anything. And when I went home and I had the most amazing dream, I am forever changed from that dream that I had. And it's very touching, very deep, sensitive to me about the dream. It wouldn't matter to me whether somebody believed it or not. I mean, I am forever changed. And my level of consciousness and understanding of what my purpose and the purpose of the earth is here, and the universe's purpose has changed. And to conclude it, my job is to be joyful. My job is to be an example of what I want for people. So I don't want to go around fixing people. I don't want to go around trying to think that my purpose is to help people, although I hope I do through just being my authentic self.
Well, you can be sure you are helping people. I can assure you that. With regard to some of your dreams and how you've really worked at this, are there certain methods or practices that help you to expand these sort of experiences that you've had?
Well, I heard you say the word work, and I'll be honest, it's never been easier for me just to close my eyes and get in touch. I think it's more to do with desire and intention.
Hmm.
So you can't trick the universe. The universe it permeates you. So you can't say one thing and do another. So my desire has been very strong towards wanting to know the truth and to be part of that truth of the universe. So, like, probably burning desire. So when I go to sleep and close my eyes, I feel like I'm being rewarded by the universe by just saying, listen, I don't want it to be a certain way. I want it to be the way it is, and I accept it for what it is, and I'll receive it the way that you want to give it to me. You know what I mean? Like that truth. So I'm not going to try to bend it. I'm not going to try to use it for my sake of whatever I want to do. I just want to know the truth with my full and open heart. And I just want to love people, and I want things to be good for everyone. The universe knows your heart.
What kind of meditations do you do generally? Is it is there any specific ones or what helps you there?
I'm laughing because I've had so many people ask me, like, what do I subscribe to in terms of, religion or meditation or anything? And I'm probably, even though I do have science, I probably have more science than religion background. I don't read a lot of books. I used to, but I made a policy to start reading my own book and listening to my own guidance and listening to my own internal clock and discovering things for myself. Because when you discover them yourself, when you learn how to meditate through your own being and to pray through your own being without being told what to do, you feel so connected and so real and so genuine. And the breakthroughs that you have aren't breakthroughs from what you read from someone else, but they're breakthroughs that are happening within you. I suppose if I read or read anything and adhere to anything, I think Jesus was a great master. That's who I look to for guidance when I think to myself, oh, like, especially along the way of my journey, I think, well, where can I go to learn, and how can I learn? And I think Jesus, for me personally, how everybody has a different NDE and it resonates with a different person. His mastery and his godliness resonates with me. So what do? I just like look at the Lord's Prayer. I look at things like that, but I look at it from a different perspective, not like, what are the words? How can I say it? Please listen to me. I look at it like, what did you mean when you said this? And how deep can I go? Like, how can I take the wisdom that you took the time to come here on earth, to live this, to do this? How can I maximize your love and your gift to me?
Yeah. What would you say is the most profound thing about Jesus Christ, the story of Christ in the gospel? What's the most profound thing to you?
There's a few, but one of them that comes to mind right away from the dream I had in Sedona is that the kingdom is within. I really did not understand the gravity and level of comprehension that that very small sentence has to say. And basically, what Jesus meant, according to me and my interpretation, and both in my dream and in reality, is that everything that you see outside of yourself is first created within. So, regardless of if you're not happy with what you're seeing, the cure, the healing, the balm, the creation, the connection with God to co create is right within you. That is the most empowering statement that I feel. And then next is love. So, when I heard about love, first of all, I'm a human being, so I grew up thinking, oh, love, I love my parents, you love your husband, you love your children, and that's all part of love. And love becomes bigger and bigger. It used to be a smaller circle. It's getting bigger, 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 bigger. So love is a state of being, of abundance, and of joy, and it encompasses the Spirit of God. So that's why I like love, why I love love. And I think Jesus was pretty adamant about that part. And I get it now. I get it. And I get the fact that he didn't come here to say, hey, you better be good, because if you're good, you're going there. And if you're bad, you're going there. No, he's like, here's a book. Here's a New Testament for you, or whatever the scriptures. I don't know who wrote what, but I like the words that in the red print. Here's a grid for you to get on good in life. You're here for a reason. You're here because perhaps you have, I'm talking about everyone in general. What do we have? We have compulsions, we have all kinds of. Here's a little book here that's going to help you out. He is this spiritual, ultimate self-help, self-love connection to God, spiritual friend, brother, holiness that for me exists. And I think, wow, this is mind-blowing that this human being who was the Son of God, and I believe we are too, he's trying to tell us that, and this happened 2,000 years ago, and it's still popular.
Yeah.
It has its holding power.
Yeah, no kidding. It's like talking about Harry Potter 2000 from years from now, right? Like those are pretty distant odds, so there must
Very
have been something transcendent in that story. At least in my opinion, I think so too. I think we agree on that. Yeah. I was going to ask you, well, speaking about spiritual teachers, starting with arguably the best, Jesus, who are some of your other favorite spiritual teachers or authorities that you've had on? Or maybe
well.
even some that you haven't had on, sorry.
Yeah, I haven't had on. Yeah, I wish that I could have those people on. So um, in the near death experiencer things, I think there's so many people I'd still like to have on my channel, like Anita Morjani, even Alexander, Mary Neal, and more. Those are just some, because I mean they just live the vibration. I mean they're just, it's amazing. Real life gurus slash teachers, of course, Jesus is the top of my list. But I also want to credit some other people that were influential in my life, such as in the very beginning, I'm talking like 30 years ago, when I was sitting down with my, in my living room, Deepak Chopra came over the waves and started talking about the realm of all possibilities, going into the gap and creating affluence and spirituality through this new way of thinking. And a lot of what he said resonated with me, and it was instrumental in the evolution of my spirituality. And then currently with Sadhguru, he's a very polarizing individual who is very cheeky in a lot of ways, but
Oh, yes.
he has some very interesting thoughts. I like people who think outside the box, but I want to make it clear I do not throw myself into it and think that's my guru. Everything they say, they're not human, they're above human, and I don't do that. I do that with Jesus, but I think there are so many people here on earth that are living their truth, who are helping other people by just being themselves. And they're getting, the thing that I admire is that they have the courage to glow and to step forward and to show up with strength despite all the criticism and questioning and examining that they receive, which is exhausting when you're a human being and you're being like picked apart nonstop on the internet and everywhere else, and questioned as to why you believe, where did it come from. Like, people are really looking, like even with Edgar Cayce. Edgar Cayce was influential when I was 16 and I read his book. I think I got it at 14, but at 16 I was starting to understand the concepts. That they also did that to him. Yeah, he was also influential because they started to get my wheels turning. But the most influential is the God that lives right in me. And as I'm walking walking around, I feel the truth moving inside of me and the power of co-creation. I'm like gobsmacked at the concept that God put inside of me the ability to create my reality that's around me. And, like someone like you, to have a great conversation. I mean, this is my work, literally, to speak to a lovely person like you and
Oh,
have
thanks.
fun sharing my deepest thoughts and beliefs.
Yeah. Well, I echo that. Thank you so much for coming on here. I thoroughly enjoy this sort of conversation too, because it's just you know how privileged we are in this time to have things like Zoom, where we can go face to face and have hour-long conversations on these sort of topics. Um, Speaking more about spiritual teachers and stuff, are there any books you'd recommend that you've read? I don't mean to put you on the spot or anything. I'm just curious.
My book.
You can recommend your book too.
I wrote my book, I think last year, and I love it, and I do recommend it. However, I can feel another book coming already. Like, things are changing. That's the other thing. Like with my website, I feel like I'm changing so rapidly, like transforming, not changing, but I'm always the same, but transforming. I can't think of something right off the bat right now. I know that it just depends on where you're at. I mean, if you
Yeah.
told me who to recommend it for, then I would say what book. But just in general, I just I can't recommend any. I think you should go by your intuition. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
here's the book of your soul. I think you should start reading what's happening within and to start really tapping into believing in yourself and to start trusting your intuition and to know that you are a part of God's creation and within you is the power to do that. So yeah, I think I'm repeating myself with that, but honestly, I think people spend too much time reading other people's work and not, well, it's good to, but not enough time allocated towards their own book as well as prayer and meditation.
Your book, maybe tell us a little bit about your book. Is it mainly stories of your spiritual journey or your mystical experiences, or I didn't get to read it, so I'm just curious.
So it's a series of my dreams organized in a framework of lessons. So each dream, I break it down into a lesson of what I learned and what's there for people. I'll give you one example. It's one of the popular examples that I use. So I went to bed one night, fell asleep like any other night, and I opened my eyes and there's two angels. One is guarding a cave and the other one is asking me to come inside of the cave. So I go in. I love these angels. I can tell that they're here for me and to show me something. So, and I've had dreams before, so I trust them. I go in the cave, and the one did not communicate, the one outside of the cave. They were going to be there like forever, guarding this cave for me, or however long it took to guard the cave. So I go inside the cave, and there's all manner of gold, like wall to wall, up, down, just gold everywhere. And I
Wow.
noticed also that there are some gems like rubies and sapphires and diamonds and on the ground. And I'm looking, I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. And the angel said, well, this is yours. Come further in. I want to show you. I'm like, oh, I don't think so. Like I've not done anything to deserve this amount. This is a lot of gold and a lot of stuff in here. I don't think so. And then the angel kind of smiled at me, and this was telepathic, and said, this is all from God. This God wants you to have all this and more. He wants you to have everything you have now here on earth and all this and more. So there was a kind of, when I say this, sometimes people are like, I'm not materialistic. I wouldn't care and blah, blah, blah. You can look at it in 500 different ways. This was about potential and what God wanted to give me. You could interpret gold in the value that of what your value system is. I interpreted it on every level, materially, spiritually, loving wise, potential. Primarily, it was potential. Basically, they were saying, hey, here's all this stuff to tap into anytime, girl. You want to, just do it. And I was like, oh, no. So the lesson was, and I'm glad I'm on your show saying this, because the lesson was about worthiness and feeling worthy of receiving your full potential in every aspect of abundance. And clearly, I didn't think that I had done enough. And this is a common human experience. That's not to say that I don't feel worthy or I have issue, or that you don't feel worthy, you have issue. But it is a general consensus that if we need to get something, we need to work hard for it. It's like you need to bust everything to get it. And I think abundance is a little bit more light and joyful than that. I think that if we can overlook our perceived and hidden blocks and obstacles of perception of who we think we are in the realm of all reality, and simply just in this life, that information, as well as potential and gifts from God, are available anytime. Just like move into the vortex.
How big is your book, if you don't mind?
Very short.
Yeah. Sometimes those are the most profound.
Yeah, I can't remember how many pages, but it's very short, but super impactful. And I just wanted, as an author, I've written other books. Like I wrote a textbook once. And I learned that only 5% of people, I believe is the statistic, you can correct me if I'm wrong, only get into the first chapter. So I thought, if those are the stats, I want people to absorb my book, and I want it to make a big impact. And I want people like me who don't want to spend day after day reading. Now, some people do. I want them to glean some gems right away. I want them to transform right away. If I had one wish for every single person, is that they would love themselves and that they would bring joy into the world.
Well, that's great. That's great. And best of luck with all that, by the way, with the success of your book. Now, speaking more on the topic of your focus on spirituality, as you know, the thrust of my channel is the law of attraction, right? And there's a lot of overlap in much of what you and I discuss. For example, your philosophy when it comes to life challenges is, actually, you mentioned this a moment ago, the only way out is in, you know? And why do you think starting inward is the best approach?
Okay. So first of all, on my channel, every Saturday I go live at 11 and I talk about those things exactly, like spirituality and the law of attraction. And so when I saw your channel, when you invited me on, and I saw your take on it, it's actually because I get asked to go on a lot of different interviews and I choose where I'm comfortable. And I was comfortable because before meeting you, when I watched, I thought, this guy's thinking. This guy's on to something, and he is, I like your perspective. So
Thank you.
It's all intertwined. So if you look at that dream about the cave and abundance, and when you think about what people mostly want to have their needs met. They want to be loved. It's 3 categories: health, wealth, and love. And they want to be well, they want to have all those things. And what I feel, this is my interpretation, blocks them is their interactions and perceptions about life. And some people say, yeah, but I didn't ask for this and that. See, we don't have the broadest perspective because we don't see our past lives or who we were before. We have a limited scope in terms of who we are. Anyhow, back to reality. In order to experience good health, wealth, and love, we need to become those things. We need to be those things. So the law of attraction, I feel, is a little bit of a misnomer because not fully. Let me explain why. Because if you are being awesome, then everything that's around you is going to come to you and be attracted. But I don't think someone should sit in a cave and go, I want to attract, this is what I want, this is what I want. I think they should be that. So if you're like an entrepreneur and you've got an invention and you're really excited and stoked about it, you're going to attract people and opportunities towards that. So yeah, in that level, yes, I do believe in the power of attraction, but I think becoming something makes you a magnet. And I love the concept of magnetizing what I want through being that. But ultimately, I think it's very important for me to know that everything I'm witnessing is through my lens. So I can only absorb as much as I can be. I can only see and expand as much as I do myself.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying there about the law of attraction. We're very much similar in using that term. That, you know, when I say the law of attraction, I'm not talking about Rhonda Byrne and The Secret necessarily, although that, you know, she touches on a lot of the concepts there.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like, kind of like how Buddhism is pointing at something. You know, like they say in Buddhism that it's a raft that's meant to be disposed with, because you're pointing to something that can't be explained. It's a kind of direct experiencing that you're trying to impart to the other person, and language falls short of that so often,
Well,
right?
you said something really valuable at the end of the question. You said, why do you think it's so important to go within for the
Mm,
law of attraction? And I didn't mean to gloss over that one because it's super important. So back to what Jesus said, the kingdom is within. So whether you're religious or not, or whatever you believe, and I don't really see myself as religious. I see myself as whatever. It's irrelevant. But the thing that I believe is that it all starts from within. So look, let's say it didn't start from within.
mm-hmm.
Let's say the law of attraction started from without. That would make it so chaotic. Like it would make, it's actually what people are doing, grasping and graveling. And by the way, I think Rhonda Burns did great by opening up the dialogue, whether she's right or wrong, or
Oh,
whether her
sure.
perception is my perception. I think it's great. Open it up. But as far as going within, so let's say you didn't know what a diamond was, and I gave you 25 diamonds of the most immaculate quality. You wouldn't care because you didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So when you go within, you understand the value of life, of energy, of love, of everything. When you are in touch with your feelings, thoughts, emotions, but more importantly, your state of being, you understand the value of what's coming to you. That's why you become abundant. Because when you go in, when you listen, not want and wish and hope and hang on and nah, when you go within and see things for what they really are, including all of your feelings, because your feelings and thoughts are barometers, then there's a deeper level of being, which is where you meet with God. So when you go within, you see the value of things. So no matter what you're given in your life, you may or may not appreciate it. You may or may not recognize it. You may or may not see, like a partner, for example, that you've been given that's a perfect partner. You might see them and go, well, they've got flaws. They're not right. It's not right. That's not good enough. So the very most important thing to do is to go within. And when you go within and you learn that outside of you is a reflection, if you see that partner, person, thing, job, material thing, spiritual thing, and you don't like it and you start judging it, it's a very clear indication that some inner work needs to be done to meet your love place and let go of the judgment and will. So if something's rubbing you the wrong way and you don't like it, it's just a teaching, guiding tool to go back inside, come forth, and then when you feel like you have everything that you ever wanted, I don't mean fake, I mean when you're
Mhm.
really joyful and content, then you know you're on the right track.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier that it's not so much about desiring, although that might play into it. It's about what you are being, that you get, right? So it's how you're already interpreting reality that's attracting what you're getting.
So I think desire is kind of like a spark and charcoal kindling. Desire really does play an important role because it breathes, it sparks. It's just what it does is it gets your wheels in motion. And I think desire is a good thing that can go either way. You can burn the whole thing down with that kindling, or you can keep warm. So whichever way you want to guide it.
I know you already answered this to a large extent, but consider this your mission statement, if you will. What's the goal of your channel?
To self-actualize, to be who I am, so that I can bring joy in the hearts of those who listen and participate.
I like it. I like it. And you're doing well. Sylvia, I'm so thankful that you took the time today. I also wanted to say you're doing a great job with the production value of your channel. It's all of your content is so watchable. I can't come up with a better word than that. You know, you do a good job of getting a nice background, and your editing is great. It's very not glitchy. I love that. And of course the content is what steals the show. Now, for those of you tuning in, make sure you subscribe to her. As always, there will be links below in the description and in the end screen. I'll also link up her website where there's an offer to receive a free 74-page book workbook with the purchase of her ebook, Downloads from Heaven. So thanks again for being on here. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Sylvia, before we say goodbye? Or
I want to thank you very much for inviting me, and thank your audience for listening. Hello to anybody who I haven't met yet, and I'm so glad that we had this opportunity today. Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet. Wonderful. Well, thank you. Hey guys, did you like this video? You know what to do. And if something I mentioned today resonated with you, click one of them cards on this screen. I have lots of related content sure to interest you. Thanks as always for your views, and we'll see you next time.